When I made that video about small cities needing good transit services, a lot of you seemed to like it. But I really want to experience how transit services look like in a smaller and more remote community than those in that video. Victoria region? Too big. Fraser Valley region? Still too big. Kamloops in Kelowna? Nanaimo? Uh... Oh wait, even further northern communities have transit too. Let's go! Okay, now where shall we go from here? This is Gat Tah Kwa, also known as Fort St. John, British Columbia. This city is home to 22,000 residents in the Peace River region, one of the northernmost regions in the province. While researching about this community, I discovered that this city is also the northernmost city to be serviced by BC Transit, the provincial transportation company providing transit services for cities, towns, and communities. Let's see how the community looks overall and how people get around with the transit system and infrastructure that it has. Right from my arrival at the airport, I was slightly surprised that there are no transit services from the airport to the core of the city, despite it being a mere 10-minute drive. I know the not enough demand argument may not justify this, considering there are 5 daily flights from this airport, but maybe the issue is with the supply of vehicles and bus drivers needed. That's okay, I'll just take a cab to the city center. The cab ride took me through some rural roads around the town, some industrial streets, and finally arrived at the North Peace Culture Center. This building consisted of an art center, a cafe, a library, and a theater. My first impression about this is how a small community knows how to build multi-purpose buildings that can attract people, especially children, at different times of the day, except Sunday and Monday when it's closed. Inside the library, the maps and schedules of the bus routes caught my attention, and this is where I started my exploration with transit. Fort St. John is serviced by BC Transit as I mentioned, and there are 5 bus routes in total. I thought that this is pretty good at first, but 2 of them only operate one ride in the morning and one in the afternoon, like school special buses for high school students for those of you in big cities. The other 3 routes run from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday to Saturday. Okay, I'll give it a B for partial weekend services. The headways can be from every 30 to 35 to an hour. All routes operate using Vicinity Grand West buses, a mid-size bus that can carry up to 45 passengers. This is the map of all routes, and they seemed... I don't know what shapes they are. They're kind of hub and spoke, but also very circuitous, and one more thing I noticed is they only run in one-way loops. This is actually pretty confusing, and also time-consuming, because you can only travel in one way but not the other direction. And while some parts of these loops also overlap into each other, so if you board the wrong stop, you can risk traveling to the wrong direction of the loop you're going to. I also had a chance to chat with some drivers regarding their work, and given the schedules, they work 6 days a week, coordinating with the schedules of the bus. I don't know what to feel about this. On one hand, the drivers have to work so many hours with only one day off, and what if they get sick? But on the other hand, the municipality is also small, so they and BC Transit may not have the budget to hire extra drivers to make sure that there are enough substitutes in case of emergencies. What do you think? Can someone offer me some insights on this issue of balancing the work for transit operators, the number of operators needed, and the budget of the city? I waited at what's considered the main hub of transit, the bus stop outside the culture center. I noticed the road surface was concrete around where the bus stops. Couldn't just make it a bus only lane, to be honest. I saw a trash bin with a half open lid like this. Looked like a perfect area to put a transit map and transit schedule for all the buses on it. But as my cousin says, we don't do that here. The first route I hopped on was Route 2 to the south side of the city. I noticed that bus routes here display their directions by what side from the culture center they're heading to, not by any specific locations or neighborhoods. This bus displays Southside, but it loops to the east side of the city as well, before hitting the Totem Mall and the Walmart. One thing I have to commend this city and BC Transit is the accessible placement of their bus stop. Both the Walmart and the Totem Mall bus stops are placed right at the front entrance of the buildings. This is substantially much better than forcing pedestrians to walk across giant parking lots to access the bus. The buses all have audible signals telling riders what their next stop is, and a display board inside the vehicle of the next stop. Fort St. John also did a pretty good job at providing bus shelters for riders, and some even has a solar panel. I assume it is for the interior light of the shelter, which is pretty good. One more thing that I like about BC Transit is the lack of ads, whether in vehicles or at the bus stops. I don't know about you, but an excessive amount of ads on transit give me a feeling that the transit service needs an inhaler to survive, and it makes the interior extremely gloomy. Trips can be paid for using exact coins or the new UMO card or e-pass program. The trip is $2 for a single ride, and you can obtain a transfer slip that is only valid if you board a bus at the culture center, which is a weird concept for transfer compared to other cities when it's 90 to 120 minutes of free transfer after your initial boarding period. Behind the driver's seat, there are booklets from BC Transit. I love modernization of information, but booklets like these are extremely helpful for people who are new to the city or senior residents who may not be familiar with using tech. Okay, where we're at. My second day began with a little walk crossing the Alaska Highway. This side of the town is just industrial buildings, and there are very limited ways to go around here as a pedestrian. This is a reoccurring theme of industrial districts in many Canadian cities, and I'll make a separate video about that. Heck, even the sidewalk leading to the intersection between the main street and the highway suddenly ends here, basically throwing pedestrians on a poorly visible pathway leading to the intersection. These footsteps and trace of bike tires is a proof that there is a need for active transportation, not to mention that there is a bus route running through this area as well. After the walk, I decided it's time to try the UMO card or the e-ticket program out. I thought this can be a universal pass for the whole BC transit system, like the ARC card of Greater Edmonton or the Presto card of Metrolinx, where you can just add money to the card like a debit card and use it across all regions it serves. But the app was telling me otherwise. There are so many BC Transit regions to choose from. Made me wonder if I can use the same e-ticket at different regions. But for the whole morning, the app just refused to charge my card when I tried to buy a day pass. I decided to just give up and switch to buying a physical UMO card instead. Now it's time to look for places that sell them, especially on a Saturday. The city hall was off the list as it's closed, so I was left with either the public pool, the library, or the Pomeroy Leisure Center. I tried the library and the pool, and both said no, so this is a little message to the City of Fort St. John and BC Transit. Psst, please edit the location to buy the UMO cards on your webpage. UMO card is acquired. Fun fact, the person at the Pomeroy Center was a little surprised when I mentioned I'm not from the area. I'm just a tourist who loves visiting communities and experience their transit services. I walked for 15 minutes around the sport complex and the museum. Looking on the map, Fort St. John seems to know what mixed-use zoning is for buildings and businesses. Besides that example about the library, they also know how to design a park, a spray park, an art corner, a museum, a public pool, a farmer's market, and a Pomeroy Center with lots of sporting activities within the same block. The ultimate definition of mixed-use zoning is buildings of different types complement each other in an area to save spaces, and they kinda did it for this corner. It's just the parking lots remain massive with lots of pickup trucks for off-roading. I went up to the library and it's time to go back to transit. Route 3 to Prospect Park was the next bus that I tried. This is the bus to that industrial neighborhood, and the only route of the town to have a name for its destination instead of just Northside or Southside. When on the bus, I realized that the UMO app lets me track the location of the bus, and it can be used for navigation if you know what stops you're heading towards. This is a great step in making transit information more available for people, and many big cities are still struggling to learn from. However, the geocoding of the route map seems messed up, and it seems like I'm cutting corners and using all the shortcuts with the bus. One more thing that I noticed about bus drivers of this small community is that they will let passengers know what route they will drive next when they are approaching the culture center. I feel like this must be just a small town thing, and it also created the connection between the drivers and their riders. Route 3 became Route 1 traveling to the north side, and it passes through some senior homes, the hospital, and the rich area of the city with more fancy looking housing. I feel like instead of designing a chaotic network with bus route making so many turns, and at many areas only have one-way service, the grid network of the road can allow for a redesign of a north-south, east-west that transfer at the culture center, and another loop route covering the corners of the city like this. But let me know what you think. The hospital and the Northern Lights College both have a great placement for the bus stop, where the stop is located right by the building's front door, perfect for accessibility and mobility, especially given how important the hospital is to someone's health. Many big cities still have to take note of this, as bus stop placement directly affects its accessibility and someone's willingness to use the service. I hope people remember that no matter how good the service is, if the bus stop of that service, the first servicing point of the passenger, is not good, then it already failed them. Northern Lights College stop is the northernmost bus stop serviced by BC Transit. Looks like every campus has those pathways where it makes students feel comfortable to walk around and to nearby destinations, and this campus is not an exemption with the pathways connecting to nearby homes. However, they don't expand as far as the Cars Road, which completely defeats the purpose of creating connectivity. The bus dropped me back at the library and it got dark. And what do you know? This city knows how to design its main street nicely with overhead lights like this. Given it is a winter community in the north, having decorative lights like this as public art will significantly make people feel better about the outside. And these lights make the street a tunnel of lights. A little bit off the track, I took taxis in this city too. And I feel like it's a common concept that taxi riders obtain the phone number of the taxi driver instead of the taxi company to use the service. I figure that since the supply of taxis is smaller, people do this for their own convenience to reduce the wait time, but it's still interesting to me. There was no transit on my only Sunday here, so unfortunately I had to go to places using just my feet. I participated in the community by joining their free skating at the Pomeroy Center and was astonished to see the place being filled with people, even marked as a busy area on Google Maps. Activities like these are critical for small communities as they have their recreational needs too, and it brings accessibility and equity to people as well. I enjoyed that activity, and so many families were gathering here too. This is definitely a community building area, and that's what leisure centers are for, at least in small cities. I also checked out all the amenities offered by the center, and they're pretty good. Walking around the city, I noticed that they aren't good with mixed-use zoning at all when there are lots of single-family homes and exclusively residential buildings sprawling around. This really gives me the vibe of rural sprawl, which is the worst kind of sprawl given how much space they take up and how little the budget can accommodate it. This city knows what mixed-use zoning is until it comes to housing. But again, the local context will matter, so I would love to hear from the locals about zoning in general in this city. I also had the opportunity to check out some active transportation pathways in the city. They are new and seem pretty good, providing good connectivity and opportunities for both recreational and commuting walks. However, I hope they are properly maintained and cleared in the winter to ensure safety and comfort for their users, and hopefully more streets will end up getting their sidewalks as well. So, let's wrap up this journey. Gat Tah Kwa, or Fort St. John, is a pretty good city. I didn't expect I would learn so much from this place, from its history of the indigenous languages in this region to the urban forms, planning, transportation, and interactions between people of the community. I haven't had a chance to go over the policies and future plans for this city yet, but if you're a local that happens to watch this video, please feel free to send them to me. And if there are any good stories about small communities that you know, feel free to share with me below. Bye for now, and I'll see you in my next videos. In case you didn't know, my channel has super likes and members enabled. Join my channel to enjoy some exclusive updates on my future videos and participate in the brainstorming or scripting of the videos. I also would like to thank all supporters from Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee who helped keep this channel going. I appreciate any amount that you chip in, as they do help cover some expenses for these videos. See you soon!